podcast of the Transcultural Caravan. The Transcultural Caravan is a hub of global thinking on a new type of leadership and the capacity to cooperate as well as to define globally shared values. It is initiated by the Leadership Excellence Institute Zeppelin. The Transcultural Caravan at the 20th Academy for Business Ethics in Weingarten on November 26th. It is organized by the German Business Ethics Network and Academy der Diözese Rottenburg-Stuttgart. Core speaker, Liad Ortar, manager of the Corporate Social Responsibility Institute, College of Law and Business, Israel. Sustainability reporting, CSR and business ethics in Israel. Further speaker, Marco Möhrer and Michael Suurendonk, both PhD scholars of the Wittenberg Center for Global Ethics. Transculturalism and Leadership Excellence. Evaluation of the Transcultural Profiler. Introduced by Tim Robert Schleicher, Project Manager of the Transcultural Caravan.
It's a great opportunity to be here. As Dr. Richiger said, I've been here last year as a participant in the Academy, and now it's great to be back with the Transcultural Caravan. Let me introduce it to you. The core idea is to generate a hub where people can meet and where people can share their experiences and do research together. The idea is that there's a lack in the capacity to cooperate, that there's a lack in the capacity to define globally shared values and shared interests, and especially when we see societal organizations and individuals, there's a leadership style that is not that sustainable, and what the Transcultural Caravan wants to do is to tackle leadership in the 21st century regarding the challenges we face in the 21st century and thereby deliver a new approach. And this approach is based on the idea of transculturalism. Transculturalism is a concept that goes beyond multi and interculturalism. I think you introduced it probably in one of your sessions already, but we will later hear something by Michael and Marco also about it. And it's a concept that focuses on commonalities and not on differences, as, for example, interculturalism does. The core idea, I think, is that there is a culture that goes beyond cultural exceptionalities, from the idea that there's a culture we all share, that there's certain values we all share, and that we should focus on them and start from this perspective. And as we see also from historical development, that there's so much overlapping between cultures that classical views of cultural differences are out of date in some way. And this is regarding the core, and this hub we are building is a transcultural learning environment that is trying to stimulate ethical and sustainable leadership by fostering dialogue between young leaders, young researchers, and people from all continents. And that together we can work on the constitution of a global moral order. How do we want to do it? The Transcultural Caravan is based on 3 pillars. The first pillar is knowledge, meaning we want to do research on the topics I've just presented, and we do essay competition, for example, where we encourage people and students from all over the world to contribute to the topics and the challenges we face. And then the network to link researchers is here, for example, that we go to such academies as we have it right now, and to build a network between people who want to deal with these challenges, and then have conferences. And one of the conferences we will have is in next fall, a conference on German and Chinese relationships. Then, as I already said, the essay competition as another project, and we have field projects where we link researchers, and this is how I get to know Liad Ortar in Israel. I will not say too much on the project, but introduce Liad. Liad is a researcher and a lecturer at Ben Gurion University of the Negev, and he is head of the Corporate Social Responsibility Institute of the College of Law and Business in Tel Aviv. He specializes in the estimation of environmental values and sustainability, and his core topic is also non-financial reporting. I'm very happy that he is here today. It's a great researcher, and I think it will be very enriching to hear his presentation. Welcome, Liad Ortar.
So to give me good luck, everyone is knocking on wood. So. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the kind invitation to come here and to share with you my thoughts and my insights about corporate social responsibility, about sustainability, ethics, relating all of that to my work and my advocacy of the issue of the topic in the Israeli market. The presentation will all be available for you if someone of you would like that. And also there is a short paper that I wrote, which is CSR in Israel, a short overview that I can also provide to all of you if you would like to have a more kind of paper document that accompany the presentation. Well, you know, when you prepare presentation and you prepare lecture, it's quite a frustrating kind of process because there's so many. You think you start this process with so many certainties, but then you finish your presentation with so many questions, and I have a whole series now of topics for papers that I need to write because so many things don't make sense, and I need to find out what's the reason for that. So what's going to be the structure of our presentation? Just to show, this is a picture of my hometown Haifa in the north of Israel, and now constructed a very sophisticated system of bridges to accommodate all the private transportations going around the city. So I'm going to start with a little bit of some facts and figures about Israel, just to get us all on a common ground. What are we talking about when we're talking about Israel? Because I think probably I hear quite a lot about our little country in the news, so just getting the facts ready. Then we're going to talk a little bit about corporate philanthropy. I'm going to continue for that about the definition of the corporation, the legal aspect according to the law of corporation in Israel. Then continue to discuss about CSR guidelines in Israel. Of course, the all voluntary one, the Ma'ala ranking, the Israeli standard 10,000, about the GRI, mandatory non-financial reporting law proposal, something I'm promoting in the last years. And something about Jewish literature at the end. So we start about the facts and figures. So Israel is quite a small country, okay? Israel is quite a small country concerning. So as you can see, I try to keep the scale more or less the same, but we're talking about the Israeli population is about 8.1 million people. The population only in this state, in Baden-Württemberg, is 10.51, so we're talking about the city now in the state which is larger than the whole state of Israel, not doing as much news as we are, but the same population. Our population growth rate is 1.9, so about 2% population growth in Israel. So people in Israel are bringing a lot of children. Secular, but also, of course, non-secular, religious, Arabs. A lot of in Germany is 0.4. All the data is from the OECD list of information that they have. The size is 22,000 square kilometers, and again, we're sitting in a state which is almost a double in size. But if we look at some more financial information, we can see that Israel might be small in size, but it's huge in its economic achievement. We're talking about the GDP per capita in Israel, which is $33,000. If you compare that to our neighbors, I just put the Palestinian Authority, which is quite high because in next to Arab countries. To the Palestinian Authority, we're talking about $1,600 per person, and in Egypt it's $1,500. And we're talking about Israel, which is 33,000, and Germany 44,000. So really, there's no place to compare, to make a comparison on any kind of economic comparison between Israel and its neighbor countries, because it's a whole different ball game concerning our economic performances. So as I said, Israel is small. It's geographically isolated but globally connected, with 70% of all households internet connected. Here in Germany, it's 85.5. It's a rich country, okay? Israel is a rich country. I'm not going to hear about distribution, but it is a rich country. It is religious, but I'm asking only by definition. It's religious by definition. The question is it only by definitions, and it's all of the religious institutes that basically compare, because in control, because in Israel there's no separation between religious and state. Okay, so rabbinical institutions are part of the state, are part of the regime, the governance in Israel. There's a high level of income equality. There's the Gini coefficient parameter, if you might know. It's 0.36 in Israel, and in Germany, of course, it's lower than that. Israel is innovative, so one of the things that Israel exports is innovation, technological innovation. One of the main hubs that the innovation is being cultivated is in the army, okay, the Israeli army. And one of the reasons that the Israeli army is becoming such a productive greenhouse for innovation, because it doesn't apply the rules of intellectual property. Intellectual property doesn't work in the Israeli army, so everyone can do whatever he wants with whatever development he finds wherever in the world, and then do whatever he wants with that. And we have a continuous status of security challenges and regional instability. Probably you know, every hour there's something new going on in our area. So this is the whole overall structure. And then when I started the presentation, I asked myself where to begin with, because I refer to Professor Williams' paper, CSR Made in Germany. And I was thinking, okay, CSR Made in Israel, so what really does it mean? And from the paper it said, therefore, I'm relating to what Professor Williams wrote, therefore social market economy and social partnerships are traditionally the first concept that companies in Germany perceive as corporate social responsibility. So then I asked myself, okay, what do companies or company managers perceive as social responsibility in Israel? Where do we start the story from? And because Israel is defined as a Jewish state, so I decided, okay, let's start to look at the Jewish theological ethics perspective. Okay, and let's go to the Bible, to the commands that we have. And it's written, if there be among you a poor man of one of thy brethren within any of thy gates in thy land, which the Lord thy God given thee, thou shalt not harden thine heart, nor shall thine heart from thy poor brother, but thou shalt open thine heart, thine hand wide unto him, and shall lend him sufficient for his need in that which he wants. So we're talking about the basic command. It's about in the Bible is to open your heart to give a donation, charity to the poor. Okay, we are in a Christian facility with a church and everything. So we are here back to the origins. And the two basic principles of Jewish philanthropy, first, it's a mitzvah, so it's a command, it's something you have to do. Of course, if you're a religious person, I'm not a religious person, but still trying to find some, let's say, basic argumentations for charity in the Bible. But, and very important, it must be done secretly. Okay, it goes with that. So if you give charity to the poor, you have to do that, but you have to do it in a secret way, in a discreet way, not to tell about that. So the whole notion of giving a donation by corporation in order to increase its brand value and to use that for, I don't know, whatever kind of marketing purposes, it's against the spirit of this command. And it is well established in quite a lot of business managers in Israel, this perception. And one of the results that we can see, and just sharing with you some street view from Israel, this is the city of Bnei Brak. Okay, city of Bnei Brak. Bnei Brak is the religious city of Israel, one of two. There's Bnei Brak and Jerusalem. Of course, there are religious neighborhoods all over the country, but Bnei Brak has a vast majority of Orthodox religious people. And then all over the streets, you find this kind of boxes. They're all made of iron, so they're closed, of metal, you cannot open them. And they're all collecting charity. Okay, they're all collecting charity. These are different congregations that are collecting money for different I don't know, goals or whatever. And you see them all over the streets. So that's one of the outcomes that you can see from what I've shown you before. But then I continued and I wanted, okay, let's realistically look at philanthropy in Israel. Okay, let's stop and have a look about that. So when we're looking about philanthropy in Israel, and that's based on a survey that's been conducted by the Israeli Central Bureau of Statistics. We're talking in 2011 from all of the donations that were raised by NGOs, the contribution of the business sector of Israelis is only 5%. You see, most of the budget comes from government, from other transfers, from philanthropy from abroad, income from sales and interest rate from the money that they have. But when you're looking about mere contribution of Israelis for the overall budget of NGOs in Israel, we're talking about only about 5%. Okay? Out of this 5%, cooperation, business, the contribution of the business sector is only 25%. Okay, this number is in millions of shekels, so it's 1.5 billion shekels being contributed to the third sector in Israel by the business sector. As you can see, most of the donations in Israel for NGOs, for the third sector, are originated from households, from everyday families. Okay, a lot of small-scale donations, while the corporations are reasonably less than a third. And 2% are legacies being handed out by the government, by the general Petroleum. If you continue that interrogation kind of thing, and asking where do corporations donate money to, what are their destination of their donation, where do they donate the money to? So 35% is being donated to welfare, then you have sports, and more or less it divides in an equal base, but that's how it's divided. But the interesting thing that I think probably you have that in Germany, in Israel, every NGO, non-governmental organization that would like to issue an invoice for the donor, that the donor can take back to the tax authority and being calculated as a authorized expense. Okay, it's called Article 46. They have it also in the United States. Probably you have it here also. But only 35% of all corporate donations are reported to tax authorities for recognition as an expense. So a minority of corporations use their donation for their tax planning. Most of them don't do that. Okay? It might be explained by the fact that we said before that a charity in Israel is accompanied with the kind of an obedience for secrecy, and we don't want to report about that. Another reasoning for that could be that there are a lot of NGOs that do not have this Article 46, but still they are registered as NGO. But in the end, you can see in the media how all of this information is being interpreted in the media discourse, and it's being interpreted as Israeli corporations don't give to charity, which is like the bottom line. So going back to this line of interrogation, well, I think the mitzvah, the biblical command, well, it doesn't work that well. So maybe there are other places that could find some kind of motivations. Okay, so then I continued my line of inquiry, and then I went to the law. And we have the corporate law in Israel, which defines what is the goal of the corporation. But first of all, I would like to refer you to the date, okay? The corporate law in Israel is from 1999. And you know that the State of Israel was established in 1948. So what happened in the gap between those years, and especially what happened before 1948? And as you probably know, Israel was established upon the British mandate. So we have embraced quite intensively the legal infrastructure, the British legal infrastructure, and turned that into Israeli laws. And even prior to that, there is the Ottoman Empire laws, that some of them are still exist in the Israeli laws. So the remnants still exist in the Israeli Book of Laws, especially concerning real estate and registration and things like that. But and the fact is that the Israeli early command or the regulation about corporation was very alike the British, which basically didn't have any kind of let's say definition about what is the goal of the corporation. And also the British In the UK, they did a lot of work in recent years to articulate the new corporate law. And we have the Israeli new corporate law in 1999, which stipulates very clearly that that the goal of the corporation is to cooperate in accordance with business consideration in realizing its profits. Okay, so the goal number one of the goal of the corporation is, creating a profit for its shareholders, and within the scope of such consideration, the interests of its creditors, its employees, and the public may inter alia be taken into account, which for some countries can be looked as quite a progressive definition of the goal of the corporation, which is anchored in the law, that you can take into account, among other things, the interests of creditors, employees, and the public. Okay, also about the donation, similarly, the company may donate a reasonable sum to a proper project, even if such donation is not within the scope of the business consideration. And after said, if a provision of such is laid down in the Articles of Association, etc., if a donation can be handed out if the corporation decides to do that. But the first and most important definition of the law is that we are establishing the Israeli corporation as a revenue or profits generating machine. Okay, so it's not something different that it's in other places or like we learn. And taking it from there, then we are facing, or we are trying to promote corporate social responsibility in Israel on the voluntary base, because it's not applicable in the regulatory or in the legislative framework as I've just shown. So if you're talking about the voluntary approaches, then we need to go and to look at the common guidelines, the common tools that help us out in implementing corporate responsibility. Probably you know some of them. So we have the sustainability report in the GRI base. We have an Israeli standard 1000, which is based on the ISO 26000. We have the Ma'ala ranking, which I'll tell you about that in a second. And we have the law proposal that I've been working about. So if you start with the Ma'ala ranking, okay? Ma'ala in Israel, it's an NGO owned by corporations. So each of the business corporations that takes part in this process basically pays a fee, a monthly fee of several thousand shekels, and then he can participate in a ranking kind of it's an index, okay? You have a questionnaire, and corporations answer this questionnaire and then being rated. You can see there are different topics being divided in the Ma'ala index. You have the employee, diversity, responsible supply chain, and the percentage how it's being divided between those topics and the working process. In 2005, there were 85 companies that participated in this Ma'ala index, in this Ma'ala ranking, and this is how an outcome, let's say, a result of your evaluation, how does it look like from the side of the corporation, what do you get in the end, but not only from the side of the corporation, but also from the public side, how it's being communicated concerning the way a corporation is being has tackled or embraced those principles that I've shown before. And first of all, you can see that all of they have 3 levels of ranking, which is gold, silver, and copper, or something like that. So everyone is very nice metal that you can show off. So there's no failing. There's no one gets a minus. There's no bad. Everyone, or that you are platinum or gold or silver. These are the 3. Like everything is good. And then you have like a rational grade with numbers. And what was tested and the percentage this aspect had of the overall rating. And this is what you see on the internet site. But basically, Ma'ala ranking is a black box. Okay, it's a black box because you have the input, which is the Ma'ala questionnaire, and you have the output, which is the rating. and that's it. But you have no access to the information that the corporation have delivered, have communicated to the team that judged them. You have, as a stakeholder, you have no access to this information. Okay, this is why me and Mala don't see a lot of things eye to eye, but they're quite interested in the Israeli market. They see a lot of companies take part in that. Out of this index, they took the traded companies and built up a traded index, right? An index in the Israeli stock exchange. And as you know, a lot of people are looking and trying to excuse or to rationalize implementation of CSR from the business side, saying, like say, doing good is doing well, or the business case of CSR, or if you buy shares of companies that incorporate CSR, you have better results in your performance in the stock market. Well, you can see it on your own if you're looking about the yearly changes where it goes up and down and it has no meaning. But also if you compare that, Mala is the CSR index is the yellow one, and Mala 100, which is the biggest 100 companies in Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, is the brown one. So you see they are quite similar to each other. There are periods where Mala is doing even lower than the average data of 100 biggest companies in Israel, and there are times it's the other way around, like here. And you can see in the last couple of weeks it's hopefully the same. Okay, so there's a lot of work being done around that, and from first eyesight, we can conclude that there's no real differentiation between those two lines. It's more or less the same. The other tool I would like to present you is the standard. As probably you know, we have ISO 26000. ISO 26000 is the managerial standard for corporate social responsibility. It was designated in order to help out managers and executives to implement corporate social responsibility. It is not an accredited standard. So it's not a standard, the 26000, it's not a standard that you can have a testification process, accompany that, and have a picture on your wall that I have this standard. Not like ISO 14,000 or 18,000, 9,000, and whatever. It's a different kind of perspective, although I've been getting lately from Germany crediting agencies that start to give this credit that you have ISO 26,000. As far as I know, it's against the 26,000 guidelines. In Israel, we have the Israeli standard 10,000, which is for testification. It is designated in order to have an auditing process being conducted by the Israeli Standard Institute, and in the end, you get a certificate that you have corporate responsibility. I did my own research, and out of the 7 organizations, corporations in Israel that have the Israeli standard, none of them publish a sustainability report, and none of them publish any relevant information about ESG, environmental, social governance, but yet they do have this certificate. And I was quite criticized them about that. This is the sign that you get if you have the Israeli standard, and this is a little bit about the procedure. Okay. The third one is the GRI. It's a Global Reporting Initiative, the whole issue of sustainability reporting, which is basically, as we can say, it's my baby in the Israeli CSR arena. I brought the GRI to Israel in 2007. I translated that to Hebrew. The G3, of course, the Hebrew translation of the G3 was one of the first translations in the world. As you can see, that's Ms. Teresa Fogelberg, the deputy manager, the deputy CEO of the GRI, and she came to Israel in 2007 for the event that we did to launch the GRI, the Global Reporting Initiative guideline in Israel. And you can see the numbers of reporting companies in Israel. There's a steady increase, but still we have to take the overall number into consideration, which is mentioned here. There are in Israel 300,000 registered corporations, LTD, 300,000 registered corporations. In the stock exchange, there are 575 traded companies. Okay, so if you look at in relation to the numbers that are being presented here, like 28 companies in 2014, half only 9 first-time reporters, and the vast majority is what we call repeated reporters. We can see that a fraction, it's not even presented, a fraction of companies in Israel present or issue a sustainability report, and that's a real issue. We try to push that forward, but it is very complicated. This is why I've started about 2 years ago, something like that, an initiative in order to mandate non-financial reporting in the Israeli business sector. And we've articulated a law proposal. Okay, the law proposal basically sets out the exact guidelines, or what to say, exact KPI, key performance indicators for a non-financial reporting. It was a result of a multi-stakeholder process, quite a long one, with discussion with quite a lot of NGOs, other representatives. It was presented to member Knesset Eitan Kabel, which is now the chair of the Economy Committee in the Knesset. I hope for that to be promoted in the coming weeks. And of course, it is all. It was inspired by the proceeding of the EU Directive for Non-Financial Reporting, which just passed the end of last year, and we are all quite excited to have this kind of very, I don't stiff, but very important regulatory framework that came into our, to our help or to our assistance in order to promote non-financial reporting. If you know, that's a directive that at the end of 2017, we're going to have 6,000 sustainability reports being published only in Europe. And now we're talking around 4,000 sustainability reports being published globally. So we're talking only in Europe about a time and a half the number of sustainability reports being published. So that's very exciting, and of course we have all the initiatives in the US, the SASB, but we're not talking about sustainability reporting now. As you can see, so I have a position paper that I wrote, which is called Towards Regulated CSR Reporting in Israel. All the information is available online. I can send it to you. I can send you the link. We can put everything. Over there we have the justification of going mandatory on CSR reporting, but also the law proposal itself. Okay, it's very broadly explained over there in this report, and you can all read that. And for example, we have the basic law and we have the annex. The annex is all the key performance indicators according to the topics, governance, environmental issues, ethics, everything is over there. And then you can see that we have the performance indicators and how they are going to be reported. That's percentage, it's a text, it's attachment, yes, no, whatever. It's all being very broadly explained in the position paper that you can all read. I would like to summarize my short presentation going back to the beginning about this kind of Jewish justification. I would like to look at that more of a wishful thinking than a practical kind of rules, because I do think we need to find some kind of, let's say, context to what we do. And for me, I have to tell you that it was quite surprising, maybe in relation to the transcultural aspect, that surprising, but like I found myself during this the preparation of this presentation going back to Judaism, going back to the sources of my community, of my religious, trying to find their argumentation for why should we do things this way, not the other way. But of course, everyone has to go back to his own sources or chosen sources. And we have this tradition that says that the world is based on 3 pillars. Okay, on 3 pillars: on the Bible, on the Torah, on the things that you're obliged to do by God, basically. On the work, so it's basically on work, on the fact that you have to earn money and to create value in whatever you do, and on charity. Okay, and charity means 3 different things: on money donation, on personal physical assistance, and one speaking out. basically on your financing, on your help, your physical help, of really helping people, doing something, not just giving out money, but helping out doing, and saying good things or whatever with your language, with how you communicate. I just finish and then we can, okay? So because I'm
yeah, okay.
Because I'm in the end. So.
Thank
you.
Marco Möhrer and Michael Suurendonk, both PhD scholars of the Wittenberg Center for Global Ethics. Transculturalism and Leadership Excellence. Evaluation of the Transcultural Profiler.
The term transculturalism is maybe not so well known among all of us. We know the common concept of inter and multiculturalism. So then we thought, okay, we dive into this topic of transculturalism, and so it would be nice to share the insights we gain there with you, and also to discuss this with you. To do this, we prepared the following agenda just to guide you through the presentation. We will give you a short introduction, a short overview about our research, the problem statement, and research questions, and then really go into the term transculturalism and present some theoretical insights we have. We do a short differentiation between multi, inter, and trans, and then followed by our own analysis we did, and that lead us to the concept that we came up with, which is called integrated transculturalism, and also to the definition of transculturalism itself, as well as transcultural competences. The third part of our presentation is then a little bit more vague, I would say. We try to link here, based on what we found out, how transculturalism maybe can influence the leadership excellence concept that we have spoken about yesterday, moral action, moral behavior. Maybe we can also discuss this in a broader frame after the discussion. So we try to give a link here as well. And then just to make you aware of what I'm talking about and what the evaluation was all about, we will give you a short overview about the tool itself, that you can have an understanding of that all. And then afterwards the discussion. So the project itself, we will start. The project statement, why transculturalism? So basically, or apparently we are living in this globalized society, in a converging world, and this surroundings entails chances, but also challenges. And we have seen some of the challenges yesterday in the movie, for example. We talked about social standards, labor conditions, human rights, that are mainly addressing the business sides, the firms. So if we look at the SDGs, for example, there are many demands for businesses, for companies to address these global challenges, these societal needs. And from a cultural perspective, there are still some dominant concepts that we probably all know, interculturalism and multiculturalism, that are still very dominant in not only in literature, but also that was also backed up by some empirical results we had, also in companies. For example, we talked with 7 managers from BASF, and there it was also very clear right at the beginning that they still really go into the intercultural concept. So they are very dominant still, but they try to address the global challenges we currently have with this concept. And because of that, we believe that there must be, or there might be a need for a new concept that really goes beyond the awareness and tolerance of cultural differences, because those are two terms, awareness of tolerance and cultural differences, that are strongly linked to the concept of inter and multiculturalism. So what we believe is that the transculturalism concept is going, as Tim already introduced in the for the Cultural Caravan, is going beyond that. It's about not differences, but it's about discovering common values, the commonalities among cultures that are based on shared local experiences. And that is what, in a broad sense, transculturalism is all about, to really have a new concept that has the potential to address those challenges. So this is the broader frame, and then we pose the following research questions. Just go briefly over it. This concept of transculturalism is very new. Or let's put it this way, it's still not very well established in literature, not very evident. And so we asked the question, how can transculturalism in general be conceptualized? And based on this insight, how can transcultural competence be defined and operationalized? So this is more of the theoretical part, but as I said, we also had an empirical part, and this is addressed by another two questions. That is, how do practitioners evaluate the LTCP, the tool, in terms of its methodical soundness and practicability? Here I have to mention that it's the current configuration of the LTCP that they evaluate, so in its current configuration. And the last question was then, okay, what those results, what are they telling us? How to further develop the tool probably based on the insights we gained. Yeah, so research goals was on the one hand theoretical development of the LTCP by addressing its underlying concept, which is transculturalism, and the practical development, the second one on the other hand, by consulting selected companies. So we worked with Daimler and LEIZ. Daimler, we worked with the data Daimler provided us, and also with data from LEIZ, and in addition we had some qualitative interviews with LEIZ. So yeah, but we will focus on the theoretical part, which is the first two questions and the first goal basically. Yeah, in order to do this, I would suggest that we just dive into the theoretical discussion of transculturalism a little bit, point out some selected theoretical insights. So first of all, we started with the question, the problem actually, there's this big literature on interculturalism and multiculturalism, and also some literature on transculturalism, but how do they really differ from each other? And so we tried to elaborate a common, or to elaborate a current status of literature. And concerning interculturalism, we found that you can understand interculturalism as the encounter of two or more individuals from different cultures. That is, so to speak, the common or the current understanding in the broad literature. And you can say that here the focus is on the individual itself and distinct cultural backgrounds that they have. So individual value sets, cultural differences, cultural backgrounds. And in contrast of this, then multiculturalism can be understood then as it specifies the location or a certain kind of location where these diverse cultures from the interculturalism meet one another. Location means here it's a certain kind of context that is given, a certain place where those cultural differences can meet. And this can, for example, be the society as a whole, the whole society, or on a more micro-related level, the organization, the company, or even the team. When you think about the group work we did during this event in terms of the business game we played, this is also a context where different people meet each other, where different cultures basically meet each other. So, and then at this point, when we're kind of aware what inter and multiculturalism mean to us, or can mean, we try to put the focus on scholars from transculturalism in order to find out how they evaluate these two concepts, just to get aware of how they think about it. And one of the most well-known scholars here in this field is Wolfgang Welch. And according to his opinion, his conclusion about those two concepts was that inter and multiculturalism both still hang on to a traditional cultural concept that was introduced by Herder, who understands cultures as homogeneous and as ethnocentric spheres, sometimes he calls it islands also, that exclude any foreign element. So basically, Welsh thinks that inter and multiculturalism, they see cultures as closed systems, as not allowing any foreign elements in it. There is no fluid, mixed nature in it. It's really a closed thing. And that's why he came up with his own understanding of transculturalism. So this is not our understanding now, but this is the understanding of transculturalism that Welsh has, because he sees then that, or he understands cultures that they are as mixed and permeative constructs, elements that are more inclusive hybrids, and he thinks that classical, traditional cultural boundaries, as they are pointed in the inter and multiculturalism, are not valid anymore. And therefore, he concludes that because of this, inter and multiculturalism became kind of obsolete concepts, because they're not able anymore, because of their underlying understanding of the traditional cultural views, they're not able anymore to address the global challenges, the global societal challenges I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation. And so he sees transculturalism as the holy grail, so to speak, to match 21st century global society. And so this was the first part of our, this is a selected part of our literature review. And at this point we started to critically evaluate on these views that Welsh has on this topic. And so we tried to differentiate here between the diagnosis of Welsh and the therapy he suggests. And concerning this, we can say, or we believe that Welsh's diagnosis of the situation, of the conditions we face in our society, in our cultures, we cannot prove actually to a certain extent, because inter and multiculturalism do really assume a traditional understanding of cultures that does not entirely fit to our modern global society. But the term entirely is pretty important for us here, because we do think that to a certain degree it is still valid, it's still important, and therefore we actually discovered a kind of dilemma at this point, because despite the increased cultural integration, that is the part where we agree with Welsh, yes, cultures do integrate, yes, cultures are fluid and mixed up, apparently. So despite this increased cultural integration, there are still cultural differences. So there are still cultural sets, value-based sets, that define the individual and that basically shape our identity. And now we pose the question how we can actually conceptualize this ambivalence. How can we work with this ambivalence? Because Welsh kind of is not pointing this out. And then we ask what type of analysis could really be beneficial to reshape this debate on trans, multi, interculturalism, to really bring a beneficial view to it. And this answers will probably provide Michael for you.
Sorry, I just missed it. Okay. So perhaps to start my part, it's important to know what type of analysis that the scholars we chose to analyze, what they have made. Welsh, he had provided a more anthropological, sociological, historical analysis of the concepts. And also Möhrer and Möhrer were more on the political analysis level, and also Cantle. So if you want to think differently about something, what analysis could we make? So I was thinking, perhaps let's take a look at the words themselves. and try to see if we can get some new insights from looking at the more logical structure of the notion trans. So, according to the online etymological dictionary, trans means across, over or beyond, and it's a kind of passive state, a kind of condition. This is exactly what Welsh was referring to. Cultures nowadays, or global society, is trans culture. We are in this state of being mixed up. However, in the same online dictionary, it's stated that this word trans was perhaps a present participle of the verb vragen, which means to cross or to go beyond. And this changes the things drastically, because now instead of being some kind of passive state, we see some active notion in the word trans, actually, or in its initial conception. And then it points towards to some action. So again, in Welsh's analysis, he mainly focused on the passive notion, which we call the weak understanding of transculturalism. And I have to give him the credit, he also on the passing by somewhere had one line where he refers to some active notion that you can work towards transculturalism, that you can make it, but he never made it explicit, and he never made it the central point of his analysis. And this is where we think, actually, the main focus could lie, because of its initial meaning. It's actually the active part. We call it the strong understanding, and then transculturalism is a type of action. But, what does it further mean? It means that transculturalism now becomes part of the human intention. It's part of it's a behavior. It's a type of behavior. Okay. What type of behavior then? First of all, this behavior of crossing or going beyond presupposes two things. It presupposes that there is a difference. If there is no difference, then you don't have to cross nothing. So this is a logical presupposition. So it presupposes diversity. And not only that, in order to cross these differences, you need to know what the differences are. You need to know what this going beyond is to be intended action. Therefore, it presupposes a context where these differences meet and where they exchange information. Thus, in fact, whereas Welsh had said that transculturalism makes the terms inter and multiculturalism obsolete, we actually think there is no transculturalism at all without interculturalism and multiculturalism. This then is fully in line with Mr. Endor, who said, who also saw a problem in the debate. This is years of debate, and he was really sick and tired of it, and he was saying, at the end, we have to look for commonalities between these concepts. Well, we hope to have at least given a first hint of how to make these commonalities, and we call it the integrated transculturalism. And then, in this sense, interculturalism, as Marco already pointed out, is more at the individual level, and it refers to the individual sets of values that refer to the cross-cultural differences of people. Multiculturalism, then, is the place where these individual different values meet each other. It's a pool of diverse value sets coming together. And it then refers to a higher level, organizational level, but could also refer to society. And then transculturalism, as a more understood, as a more active, intended behavior, is then on the institutional level, for it tries to create a common working culture that is based on the differences, made productive through the sharing of the local experiences. One of our questions was that what is the definition of transculturalism? with our research so far, we came to the following definition. By the way, Wells, the main proponent, one of the main proponents of transculturalism, never provided an explicit, clear-cut definition thereof. He provided a big description, but not a clear definition. So this is a work in progress, just so you know. Transculturalism to us is defined as a temporary cultural atmosphere for social interaction that results from the competence to effectively deal with moral particularism by contextually implementing ethical universalism. Big words. What does this mean? This means that it is the behavioral proficiency to effectively establish a common working culture based on sharing local experiences, which fosters the efficient proceeding of intercultural transactions within a multicultural context. So now, what are the implications of this theoretical base for leadership, our conception of leadership excellence? To trace back the main part of the definition, it's a competence to effectively deal with moral particularism by contextually implementing ethical universalism. Transculturalism, in fact, is based on a Kantian notion, actually, because if there is anything that goes beyond cultures, then it cannot be anything as one concept, which is then humanity. And if you must do something with this concept of humanity, then, and you have to make it productive, people have to share experiences, then it is perhaps that we have to respect humanity through our actions. More Kantian it can't get. The next step then is, what does it mean to have the competence to show respect for humanity? First of all, let it be clear. It's about showing your respect. People have to share experiences. A lot of these local shared experiences of my culture, it's about moral particularism, yeah? Anything about moral that is it's about dignity always. It's about what I think is important for my life as a human being, how I want to be treated. So they are very delicate information, let me put it like that. So to show respect, you have to be in a certain way open to this information. So the competence to show respect presupposes the competence to be open. It's just logically deduced from it. And also then, if you ask yourself, okay, I can be an open manager, so I open my door, people come in, then I'm a transcultural leader. Well, it's not as easy as that, because you can open your door and tell everyone that you are open, but then people come in and you just say, yeah, what's up, what do you want? Okay, right now I don't have time. So there's also a certain way that you should behave. Therefore, this then presupposes the competence to be friendly or positive oriented. We stopped the analysis at this part because, first of all, we through discussions we were thinking, okay, perhaps we can go on endlessly further, deducing things, we also wanted to show Professor Wieland to see if everything is going in the right direction. So then, at this point, we tried to make a connection with, okay, what does this then further mean for leadership excellence? So again, to be transcultural as a leader, you have to have at least the necessary competences are the ones, those three. There could be many more, so these are perhaps not sufficient. But these competences must also, a leader must also be aware, first of all, of a need for these competences. He must perceive his situation in his context as one that is in need of those competences. So he needs to understand the moral dimension and what it means, what dignity means for his different people working with him. He needs to also accept that this is the case, and he needs to recognize the dignity needs of the people he works with, and not just think, oh my God, there she is again, crying, and he needs to accept it. And the fourth step is then also the commitment to do something with this. Perhaps he cannot do anything with this now. Perhaps he needs to make some decisions, and maybe moral action, as we saw yesterday, is not enough. Then we need the structure also. He needs to build on the structure to help him reinforce these competences that is needed to have this cultural atmosphere. Okay, so that is it for our theoretical research. As you said, the main goal was also to evaluate the tool by means of this theory that we had, and to see to what degree does the tool already integrate these insights, and to what degree not. I'm not going to go too deep in it. I'm just trying to give you an overview of it. The tool basically is a leadership development instrument that is built in two parts. One is an online-based questionnaire that leaders or managers should fill out. And the second step is then the feedback coaching, where the results of this questionnaire are being discussed. And right now, I think Dr. Marta is the one working the most with this feedback coaching. Further on, the questionnaire itself right now is it uses 9 values. These values are globally accepted values of good corporate behavior. They also stem from much of Wieland's previous work and his work with Professor Kuhn and the other name I forgot, and Schleicher, and because of being globally accepted values, in this sense, they are transcultural. Well, that's the logic of the tool I'm now giving you. And what does the questionnaire do? Basically, I will give you the next slide. So you basically have, how many of these questions? 72 or 24 questions.
24. And
you have to choose, there's a choice between basically 2 values that you can choose. Mm-hmm. So on the one side, let's say in the organization, you can say, okay, I show respect and consideration to all people. You put number 5, and then you have one more option, and then you say the next is I enforce environmental responsible blah blah blah. I put it on number 2. So at the end, what you get is a prioritization of the different values. Yeah, that's what the tool right now is doing. And Dr. Marta then puts this into production and tries to then contextualize these prioritizations. And I think right now, to put it in our terms, he is trying to find out to what degree these leaders are then transculturally competent, to what degree not, and
what issues they have.
And what the issues they have. Mm-hmm. But I'm not the one that should talk about what Dr. Marta is doing with the questionnaire, but we can discuss this later. So I guess part of our advice to our project leader, Professor Wieland, is that we think that the LDCP is a nice first step. It's basically trying to find out to what degree the leaders have a certain awareness of their transcultural identity. I don't know how to frame it. Implicitly in what I said was already our comment also. It's not yet making the step towards measuring any competence of these leaders. And so it's kind of stuck at Professor Wieland's first level. And we think there's enormous potential to better this. And let's start a discussion because I want to include our 2 research fellows, and then we can discuss further.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For more information, visit transcultural-caravan.org.